often on this program, we not only do a lot of talking on the air, but between takes, we sit around here and chit chat in the studio among ourselves before going on the air. And I have so many times felt that I wish you could hear some of the conversations that go on, that's not being recorded for the radio show. And so I think we'll put some of that on. Just give you an idea of the kind of conversation that goes on around here.
We don't quite understand the universe. We don't quite understand the solar system. So how can we quite understand the universe?
Are you rolling?
Well, I think you were saying, Dr. Lear, this gets down to an understanding of the universe. And that being said, when you're looking at these planets and all, from looking at these charts, my opinion is this is some type of enigmatic mathematics. If I'm going to define mathematics as like some way of attaining some degree of certitude. Mm-hmm. But my opinion is, when you look at these stars, nature's only going to concede so much. And this gets into things that are, I call it like a mathematical fractal sometimes. The deeper you look into this, the more that's revealed.
Well, that's essentially true, but we don't understand fractals either. It's been said that if you don't understand the past, then how can you understand the present or predict the future? Now, perhaps the universe itself is not what we even conceive it to be. Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, not too long ago, removed all the particles from the nucleus of an atom. And that's right down to the tiniest of quark. And yet they were able to look at what was left over, and what they saw left over was absolutely mind-boggling. Do you know what that was?
I think I remember you spoke about this on Jordan's show. Was geometric patterns?
Geometric patterns, various patterns of triangles and circles and hexagrams and lines and so on. And then you think back to, the movie The Matrix. And so, what are we? Do we exist because an entity or an intelligence, let's put it that way, wants us to exist, and all matter and all energy falls in place? Do we exist in a universe, the kind of universe that Einstein was talking about, or are we in parallel universes where we have another universe that's existing at the same time with parallel things and parallel beings to what we're doing, or in a universe also existing that's 2 seconds or 3 hours ahead or behind? Or are we in a bubble? Is the universe a bubble? And all these bubbles occupying some part of infinite space, and perhaps there are connections between these bubbles, which may be black holes, and perhaps what we know as so-called alien technology or non-terrestrial technology does have the ability to travel between these entities, universes, or whatever you want to call them.
As you were saying earlier, they found geometric patterns, and that's what I found just in my own limited way. This is suggestive of some type of very enigmatic mathematics beyond 2 + 2 = 4. But even that, 2 + 2 = 4, I think Socrates said that in one of Plato's dialogues. He really doesn't fundamentally understand why 2 + 2 = 4. We just accept it.
Right, that's true. There is a higher quantum mathematics. So that's like trying to understand non-terrestrial intelligence. If a civilization is 100 years older than we are, 1,000 or 1,000,000 years, how is it possible for a young civilization like us, with sort of a constrictive mindset, to even understand the concept of what an advanced civilization's logic would possibly be? So we base everything that we know or do on the logic of what we had. Now, certainly some individuals on this planet know more than others. Then we have the money factor, the black budget, the things that certain entities have been researching. So the amount of information is unequal. I mean, you can't certainly compare what I've learned about, for example, implanted objects to what Jordan Maxwell knows about, the historical development of the world and society. So each is like a small building block, and if we put all these together, we would have some, complete or more complete knowledge of just a small fraction of the entity that we live with every day. Joseph Chilton Pearce, for example, wrote a book called Evolution's End, in which he described eyesight. And if you stop and think about this, and you'll see how true it is. And he said that no individual has the ability to see the same thing as other individuals do. Because the picture that we see on our mind is not through the camera, which is the eye, but it's its interpretation in our consciousness. Plus the fact that there is no way to get the ambient electromagnetic light from the outside into the eye. And I've had infinite discussions with ophthalmologists and retinal specialists about this who vehemently disagree, but not on a scientific basis. When light enters your eye, it stimulates the retina into producing electrochemical reactions, which then sends a message, nerve fibers, through the optical system to the visual center in the brain. But there is light coming in from the outside, doesn't shoot through your eye and wind up in your brain. These are electrochemical changes that are occurring. So that's the basis of Joseph Chilton.
So there's an interpretation going on there.
That's right. So
it's subject to interpretation. It's not strictly objective.
Correct. Yeah, you have to ask the question, well, why didn't a civilization see, these large sailing ships approach the shore?
Exactly.
Because the concept of a sailing ship was not in their consciousness. And then, so they did experiments with individuals, and he came to the conclusion that the light that we see is in our consciousness. And the same thing with hearing.
Oh, yeah, music. I'm a musician, so yeah, very much so.
So our senses, are the brain itself. It seems to be proved more than one time over and over and over again. And when you look at the abduction phenomena as a worldwide phenomena, you can't pass this off as mass hysteria, a mass dream, or subjective to electromagnetic fields, because all the individuals are basically describing the same thing. To have multiple people have the same dream.
Well, on Larry King, the governor of Arizona, was on Larry King talking about the Phoenix Lights. The big, huge spaceship was over a mile long.
Right. So, one wingtip over one mountain range and the other wingtip over the other mountain range. Now you can say, well, we certainly have made a certain advance in back engineering non-terrestrial technology, but when it comes to something like that, I mean, you got to use logic. And that wasn't ours.
Exactly.
That belonged to somebody else.
And the governor of Arizona is on the Larry King show discussing this publicly.
Yes, well, once in a while you'll get somebody that will actually step forward. The citizens hearing, which is going to occur in Washington, D.C., April the 19th, we hope will be a step. It's a three-phase project, but we hope it'll be a step in trying to get somebody to release this information. But the whole idea is that if the United States is such a world power as some people think we are, and we don't announce this first, some renegade country like Brazil or China or somebody else is that.
Kazakhstan.
Yeah, Kazakhstan or North Korea. What's that going to make the United States look like? So with, we've got 25 researchers coming from all over the world and 20 some odd military officers that are going to testify. So, maybe there's going to be a push. However, where is the seed of this knowledge? In my opinion, it's not in governmental hands anymore. It's in the hands of the multinational industries that pull the strings that run the show.
The money powers.
But now you're talking about X-Files.
Yes, this is the real X-Files.
But I think you get into this too, Jordan. I mean, if there's somebody here with advanced technology, then that would have political implications in the sense, well, they're obviously more advanced than we are. Why should I listen to my government?
Oh, yes. And what does that do for religion and for theology? Because we're being told that there's one God and he loves all mankind, etc. And then you find out, no, the world, this whole universe is teeming with other world life forms that you are not privy to know about. And then when you find out they've been here for a long time, and that opens up a whole can of worms politically, religiously, commercially. And then I guess the most important thing the governments are concerned about is that all of a sudden the trust in how powerful your government is.
Exactly. That's completely eroded.
It's completely eroded. Your government is not the most powerful thing on the universe.
I don't need to listen to you.
I don't even
listen
need to listen
them.
to them. That's right.
And of course, the other thing is when this knowledge becomes public knowledge, you begin to lose control. So if you can't control the population because you're not at the top anymore, that generates fear for those who've been pulling the strings for God knows how many years and acquiring the wealth of the entire planet. And now it appears, and I'm sure Jordan will agree, that what's going on is things have gotten so greedy that greed is eating the greed that's eating the greed.
Well, that's what I think's happening. The guys running the rackets on the bottom are saying, we got to take these guys out on the top because their racket's interfering with our racket now. Yeah. We've got to do something now.
And at least before, everything was working and everybody's getting healthy. Now these people are screwing up everything. The world economy is screwed up. There's everything around us is screwed up. So somebody better straighten this thing out.
And if they don't, then they're going to pay the price because I think you told me Rome went down in what year?
Yeah, it's 425, something like that.
425, when Rome went down, went out of business, so did the rest of the world.
That's exactly right. And chaos was all over Europe and chaos everywhere. Once the empire, she was in decline, but once she officially fell, it's every man for himself, chaos everywhere. There is no law, so this is what the powers that be are afraid of, because if there is a higher form of life out there watching us, and if they're here, the implications are staggering politically, religiously, commercially.
Well, whatever is out there, I mean, has got to be looking at this situation here and perhaps elsewhere and maybe have planned these things. It looks like nothing happens, just because it happens per stance. But it looks like these things have been planned for maybe thousands and thousands of years. Maybe that's how civilizations elsewhere that are older and have survived, maybe that's how it's being done. Maybe Gene Roddenberry was, not that far off with his non-interference treaty. Don't interfere with a society. Let them solve their own problems, but yet you can sort of guide them along with various things. For example, the abduction phenomenon itself, I may have mentioned before, involves mainly the taking of ova and sperm. So obviously there's some genetic thing going on, and they're producing a new human, which has taken the term Homo noeticus. Not Homo sapien anymore, but Homo noeticus.
New man.
Yeah, that means new man. And when you look and you see what these kids can do today, they're not getting this knowledge out of a book. They're not getting it from the church. They're not getting it from the school, television, and from their peers. They already know it. indicated in so many different ways, even the relationship with animals. I mean, they have relationships. Animals will come up to kids. Kids can do things that adults, even young adults, don't understand. So the entire human race is in a state of flux. It's in a state of change. And if this was done externally, which is the only, there's only two possibilities. One is that there's Almighty God, all knowledgeable, seeking God, that has come here and says, I'm going to make a miracle and change all mankind. Or someone has been coming here and changing our DNA and making a new human, which they may have well done before.
That's who we might be today. Something that was newer from our ancestors.
Stanley Kubrick, 2001.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. What did he show?
The monolith.
Yeah, he showed the prehistoric man, which was probably Neanderthal. And then Zechariah talks about the Anunnaki, and talks about gives the guy's name. I mean, what more could you want on a post office wall?
Yeah.
Enki, a head geneticist, came here and did DNA manipulation with something. Biblically, it says what, Jordan?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is that this is exactly the story in Genesis 1 and 1, 2, and 1, 3. The very first part of the Genesis in the Bible is talking about the God said. I mean, I've said this to you before, Doctor, that in Genesis 1:1, we read in the King James Bible. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But that's not what exactly it says in the original. In the original text, it doesn't say God. In Hebrew, God is El, E-L. But that's not what the word is in Genesis 1:1. It's Elohim. Now, Elohim is different than El. And what the Elohim means is it's a plural. It's a feminine plural put on the word God. So the correct interpretation of Genesis 1:1, according to the rabbis I've talked to over the years, is in the beginning the gods made the heavens and the earth, meaning more than one. So that would explain how in Genesis 1:2 and 1:28 in the second chapter, where it says, and God said, come, let us make man in our image after our likeness. A leading rabbi in America many years ago said to me, the Bible does not say God made man. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that. And I said, well, then what are we to understand? He says, go back and read the scripture correctly. It says, God said, which is the gods, said, come, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Not make man. No, he's already here. Let's remake him. Let's make him more like us. Let's make man in our image after our likeness. Later on, the third chapter, God said, now see, man has become as one of us. And so the gods are talking to themselves. Now see what you did? You put some of your DNA in them, and now they're building rockets and designing lasers, and they're going, creating a ton. Yeah, see what you did? See, you mess with the Neanderthals, and you put some of us into them. Now look, they're coming up to deal with us. You're going to have to do something about these creatures.
Yeah. So
see what you created.
So that makes it obvious that if you're responsible for the first place, if they were here to destroy us, they would have destroyed us a long time ago.
Of course.
So the solution is you come back and you re-engineer what you already made.
Of course. That's all.
And then it's proven in other ways, too, because if we do DNA manipulations and expand our consciousness so that we're conscious of each other, we're conscious of the earth that we live in, we're conscious of destruction that we've done, we get a better understanding of we are as human beings, and you're going to do this DNA manipulation, is every single one going to be a success? The answer is no, because whether you're an advanced civilization or a human civilization, some of your experimentation or manipulation is going to go bad.
Of course.
So what do you find that you don't read about in the history books, at least in in past years that we know about, you don't find kids that are murdering their parents.
No.
You don't find kids that are going in and shooting up schools. You don't find, the terrible, horrible things. And if you see these kids like I have up close and personal, and you look in their eyes, there's nobody home.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was a movie made that you remember many, many years ago called The Bad Seed with Patty McCormick.
Yeah.
And they showed a child who had no conscience. She had no conscience.
And what is Hollywood telling you? They're telling you something?
Yeah.
Well, that was also Clockwork Orange, Kubrick again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. So here we go again. If you can't expand the consciousness, then what's the opposite? You have no conscience, and so you just do whatever it is you decide to do. Yeah.
Wild animal.
But even, I think, an animal has some kind of consciousness, because most animals will kill for need, for food.
Exactly.
Or they don't kill just for the sake
For the
of killing.
sport.
Yeah, or the
They're
sport
not as imaginative as humans.
No, they're not the Romans.
That's right. That's right.
So anyway, looking at the general situation, our future, as the more you try and understand it, becomes more unpredictable, because there's so many different factions. If you talk to different people, they give you different ideas and so on. But, again, it's like reading the newspaper in the United States and then getting some understanding of a newspaper from Brazil. They don't print the same news. Turkey, for example. When I was in Turkey, I saw so many UFOs. I didn't want to see any UFOs anymore.
Yeah.
Might as well look at the cars on a freeway. And it's in all the newspapers. It's on TV. It's an everyday thing. You go to Brazil, it's almost the same way. United States, come back here, and no such
Zero.
thing.
Nothing.
Now, there was just a recent thing that I don't know if you're aware of that happened in Germany just a few days ago. And it was, I got the URL for it. And a most amazing thing that I've ever seen on German news. This wasn't photoshopped, it was German news. There was a German news commentator, a female, talking about this and showing this on the news. They were talking about the traffic. I don't remember what city it was. Traffic on a freeway. So they were showing this heavy traffic going by. And all of a sudden, here's this fairly decent-sized saucer, comes down over an 18-wheel truck, puts down a beam of light. You see the beam of light take the truck. It's floating up into the truck. It looks like the traffic slows down to almost nothing, or not moving at all. You don't see what happens to the truck. Next thing you know, it's back down on the freeway. The light goes out, the craft disappears, and the truck is across the freeway. The driver is not injured. The truck's not injured. There's no injuries on the freeway. The cops are all over the place. They open the back of the truck up, and the cargo is missing.
The cargo is missing.
The cargo is missing.
Wow.
Now, does that give you a couple of questions?
Yeah, what was the cargo?
What was in that truck?
But obviously, whoever
This is
that
going on
superior-
all the time, though. I mean, things are being transported. It's close encounters when they're
Close encounters.
Well, they had
Steven
the,
Spielberg. They had,
the
they
ice
had
cream
the Piggly
trucks,
Wiggly
Piggly
trucks,
Wiggly,
and,
yeah.
Sure.
and all these different grocery store trucks. And inside are all the scientists with all their high equipment. But in order to transport it around the town, they put them in a truck, a grocery store truck.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know people that worked on that film, and some of the things that were actually shot in that film were true events that people don't know about.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah. So,
Well, getting back to this thing about what you were talking about the transhuman stuff, the humans being mutated.
yes.
But George,
I mean,
can,
this stuff.
can I say something about that?
Yeah.
What you were talking about when the God said, "Let us create man in our image."
Yeah.
When Adam gets expelled out of the garden, he says to the gods, "Don't put me out there with them. Somebody else was out there."
That's right. That was when Cain killed Abel, his brother. and God putting Cain out of the out, and Cain says, "Don't put me out there, because anybody finding me out there will kill me." I thought there was only Cain and Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, and Cain just killed his brother, so now there's 3 people there, and God's going to put Cain outside for killing his brother, and Cain says to God, "Don't put me out there, because they're going to find me and they'll kill me."
Yeah.
What do you mean? Who?
Who?
Who's out there?
Yeah, well, the same thing is very similar to what I pointed out before about the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
You know, if you build this tower and you're trying to get closer to God, gods or whoever they were trying to get closer to.
That's right.
And God gets mad and says, "Okay, I'm going to punish you by confusing your language." That only means everybody prior to the Tower of Babel was able to communicate.
That's exactly
over
right.
some geographical area. Well, how did they do it? Maybe they did it telepathically, because there's in none of the ancient literature, the Bible, Bhagavad Gita, Quran, anything, is there any explanation of time? Is it 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute, 100 years, 1,000 years, or whatever? They may have come back and taken away our ability for telepathic communication, and now we have to rely on vocal communication. And those who criticize that said, grays, for example, that's absolute nonsense, because who would live in a society where all minds would be all coming into your head? Hey, didn't anybody hear of a thing called a switch? You mean to say that some entity or civilization doesn't have a switch in their mind where they could shut it off? You don't have the ability to shut one eye and just see out of one?
Yeah, you're right.
Or to plug up one ear
Yeah.
or one nostril?
True.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, of course.
Nonsense.
And I would add to that in Genesis 9th chapter, 9:1. It's in Genesis 9:1 when Noah and his family are coming off the ark for the first time after the flood of Noah's day, and they're coming off, and the Bible says, God says to Noah, "Be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth." Well, and so I asked the rabbi many years ago about that, and they said, well, of course, if there was people on the earth, and then God destroyed the people with a great flood, well, if God's purposes is to have people on the earth, then you're going to have to replenish the earth. Do it again. That's what R-E means. So that's why in Genesis 9:1 it says, God says to Noah, "Go forth, multiply, and replenish the earth," meaning do it again. So I said, well, if that's true, then what about Genesis 1:28, where God is creating Adam and Eve, and that's exact same words, "Go forth, multiply, and replenish the earth." Re means do it again. And the rabbi said, obviously it means to do it again. Adam and Eve wasn't the first creation of God. It wasn't the first living entities on the earth. We have civilizations going back millions of years. So what the Bible is telling you is for your particular time in which you're living now, this is the story for you to understand it the way it's going now. But going back 100 million years, you don't need to know that. It's none of your business. What was going on this earth 500 million years ago, that's none of your business. That's God's business.
That's absolutely correct, and that's borne out scientifically. Number one, we were talking about Anunnaki and Neanderthal and Homo sapien, and the missing link. They're never going to find a missing link. Why is it that the archaeologists and anthropologists will find Homo sapien footprints right along with Neanderthal?
That's right, Neanderthal.
Yeah, there's no missing link there. And then, you could carry this forward. Let's say use your imagination or logic or whatever you want. What happened to Neanderthal? Did Neanderthal
Well, now they're saying in the BBC News that their demise was because their eyes were too big.
Their eyes were too big.
They're saying their eyes were too big, so too much of the brain was devoted to processing visual information. Humans' eyes were smaller, so that allowed for more cerebral activity, less dedication to the visual.
Well,
that was like several days ago.
Well, perhaps somebody ought to put forth the idea that Neanderthal went through their own chain of evolution and became the Yeti, the Sasquatch,
That's what I've been saying.
the swamp ape,
That's
or
right.
whatever else you want to call
The
them.
abominable snowman, etc., etc.
Right. and perhaps they possessed abilities that humans didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the scientific tracking, a member of one of the Yeti, with all the modern electronic gear, with 3 people triangulating on him and following him. They followed him way up this hill, and he goes behind a rock, and they all converge on the rock, and they go to the other side, and there's nobody there.
Wow.
Yeah, I heard about that.
So that was a scientific explanation. Well, where'd he go? Did he have the magic powers to just go into the rock? No, I doubt it. Just probably had some kind of abilities that we don't have. I mean, you don't see a chameleon. I mean, they look like they disappear too. So, I mean, there are logical things that perhaps the Yeti can do that human can't do. But they've done a damn good job by staying away from human beings.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anybody who's lived in a big city knows well, that's a good idea.
Yeah, you know, I feel sorry for the poor bears that come down and got to eat out of garbage cans. But you don't see a Yeti coming down and eating out of a garbage can.
And I believe that there's no doubt in my mind that these Bigfoots exist, because I had an experience when I was 19, 20 years old. I went up to Washington State with 2 of my friends. We went up to spend like about 3 weeks in the wilds, a bunch of kids. 19, 20-year-old fruitcakes, and we decided we were going to go up into the wilds and stay for 2 or 3 weeks and rough it. And so we went up to about maybe 50 miles or so outside of Olympia, Washington, up into the mountains, and we found this great spot, beautiful lake, snow-capped mountains all around. It was just an incredibly desolate spot in the mountains, and so we set up camp there and backed the car in by the water's edge, and never thinking, because you're stupid when you're 19, you're not thinking there are bears here, there could be other animals here, lions, right. I mean cats, right. Big ones. Now, we didn't know anything about that. We're just having fun, looking at the stars and roaming around, drinking beer and thinking we were big shots. And one night we would sleep by the car, and we backed the car in case we needed to get out quickly. We're already pointing the right way, right by the lake. And so my friend and I were sleeping on the right-hand side of the car, right by the car door, in our sleeping bags, and his brother, Roy, was sleeping over on the driver's side on the ground, and all 3 of us had guns, and so in the middle of the night, I heard something, someone walking on leaves. You know, you could hear the crackling.
Right.
But I woke up, but I didn't move. I just woke up and I didn't move, and then I heard another crackling as if somebody, very slow. It's not an animal in 4. It's 2, and then I waited for a moment, and then you hear another one squeak. So I know it's sneaking up on us, and so I'm waiting to hear if it gets louder. That means it's coming toward me, and then I hear it again, and another smashing of the leaves, and I knew this is an intelligent. It knows we're here, and it knows the possibilities, so be very careful. If you're moving up on them, be very careful. And I could hear the step, and then I waited to see, and then there it is. The next step is another one. And so I leaned over, and I woke my friend up. I said, there's somebody in the bush here. So he crawls under the car and pokes his brother, and he says, somebody's here. And so his brother, Roy, lifts up and unlocks the door very quietly, pulls out his pistol, and flips on the light. And when he did, you could hear something walk away quickly. You could just walk, bipedal, 2 feet, walking away into the forest. I will never forget that. There's something was walking on 2 feet, and whatever it was very heavy because it was breaking branches and shrubs and everything. You could hear it, and it was moving very slow, 1 step at a time, until he flipped on the light. When he turned on the light, it started to walk away, and you could hear it. Now, we are up there out in the middle of nowhere in the mountains of Washington State. That happened. So something was up there on 2 feet that was intelligent.
Those somethings are probably still there.
And please support the show at no cost to you